Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good time of day, depending on where you're at. I'm Nick Paro, not your dad, here on Sick of This Shit Publications for my second intelligent masculinity discussion today here on Thursday, February 12th. I am joined by an incredible gentleman that I have gotten to know a little bit over the last few months, who originally hails from my current state, um, and has had a really positive impact on the community in Substack in general, but also I think the community at large, just due to his presence and the discussions he's having, is the journeyman Marlon Weems. And Marlon, could you introduce yourself to everyone in the audience for us before we get into any of our discussion today?
I don't know, Nick. I don't want to mess it up. You've really done a pretty good job of making me um, look good.
I
First
try.
of all,
I like building people up.
well, it's only downhill from here, right? Look, thanks for having me. This is going to be interesting because it's not really something that I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, to be honest with you. So I had to really um, put my thinking cap on. But just to I guess sort of set the stage. Marlon Weems, and I am the publisher of the Journeyman newsletter on Substack, which, by the way, um, I started 6 years ago this month.
Oh,
I
congratulations.
know. I mean, it really was just. Oh, my wife has kind of got my number. She kind of does these things where, I used to spend a lot of time shouting at the TV. I guess it was during COVID, and she would kind of, boy, that's a really good point. You should write that down. What she was really saying was, "Would you shut up?" So
Please
yeah,
stop
that's kind of
telling
how
me
I
these
started
things.
it, man. But
It's funny. That's similar to mine. Is my wife is like, please stop saying all this to me. Just write it down. Do it somewhere else.
yeah, I mean, at that time, my kids were um, middle school and high school age. So, it's COVID. Everybody's at home. And it was like, oh, here goes dad again. So, so they shamed me into it. What can I say?
Shame can do some
It
good
has
things.
its purposes, man. Let me
Yeah,
tell
it
you,
does.
it's a tactic.
It
Well,
it
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 doesn't
is.
seem to be working on some people though, like we would think, but yeah,
I don't
it
think
worked
we've
on
shamed
me.
them enough, to be
Hmm.
honest. I think we're only
I
just
never
starting the
believed there
shame.
was such a thing as having no shame, but I stand corrected.
Yeah, I I think some people are too far gone to feel shame. Others are just waiting to feel the right shame. Um, and so I want to get, before we get into any of the actual questions today for the overall interview, is I want to get your thoughts on what happened yesterday in the congressional circus that was a hearing with uh, Attorney General Pam Bondi, where she lied her way through the process, and I think could legally be considered having perjured herself at points during the testimony and the congressional hearing. But I'd love your thoughts on what you saw from it, from a perspective around masculinity too, of what you saw either
Hmm.
positive or damaging out of it.
Yeah, I
Easy
don't know.
question to start the day.
Look, man, I have watched Pam Bondi, since back when she was the attorney general in Florida, and I was just talking about this last night with um, um, Mark Mansour. I don't know if you know Mark, but we did a live stream late for me. It was like 8 o'clock last night, so it's kind of fresh. Um, when she dropped the lawsuit or the investigation into Trump University after I think Trump made a $25,000 donation, so that was her price, I guess. That kind of told me what kind of person she was. I wasn't surprised when she got the job. I mean, she was an easy one after after the former congressman,
Matt Gates.
Matt Gates. Yeah, I mean, so what we expect, right? But all that said, she really surprised me yesterday because I've just never seen the level of just really just vitriol, and it's like, where's this coming from? I mean, she just really um seemed to, what's the word? I'm trying to find the word. She seemed really bothered that she even had to stoop to talk to the demo. And I think it was I forget who the guy was. One of the guys said, he said, Jekyll and Hyde. It's like, you're
Oh
so
yeah,
nice
that
to
was
the other
so
guy,
good.
and when you speak to us, you're and it's just really shameful. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't expect a lot from the folks that we have in the White House administration, certainly, but even politicians generally. So there's not much that surprises me. But
Yeah.
her, just the poison, right? I mean, I've looked at some of the clips of just how she speaks to people, and it's like, boy, there's something about Trump
Hmm.
that can unleash that part of a person if it's there. And I guess it's all of us have it, maybe more or less. But she clearly had a whole bunch of something real nasty going on. And he just gave her permission to just puke it out. Sorry, I know it's lunchtime, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just,
And
I've not seen that display before.
the gentleman who asked the or who stated the Jacqueline Hyde was Henry Hank Johnson, Georgia
Yes,
4.
yeah.
Um, his line of questioning was incredible. Like there were some really good lines of questioning that
Jayapal was
exposed
one.
her. Yeah, Jayapal, Rep. Jayapal had incredible questioning. Um, Ted Lieu's questioning was really powerful, where he talked about the alleged murder that happened of an underage child, um, and how like a driver nearly wanted to stop and beat the crap out of Trump after hearing about this. Like there's some really, really horrendous allegations that are in there. And the thing that stuck out to me the most was that Pam Bondi could not turn around and acknowledge the survivors behind her, and how apparent it was that she has not spoken to them in any way, shape, or form, or allowed them to be interviewed or part of this discussion, and how shameful that is, and how shameful we need to make that be.
Dude,
Um,
it's something. I mean, uh,
like
here's the part that gets me.
it's hard to add words to.
Yeah, well, it gets me that there are people that will allow themselves to be used in this way because, it's all in service to Trump, right?
Yeah.
But to to get in a committee hearing and decide, I'm just not going to answer any of these fucking questions from Democrats. And it didn't matter how simple of a question it was. She had like this reaction of just hatred and, like I said, vitriol. I mean, it's pretty stunning, really. And it honestly, you have to look at Republicans. They're seeing this. So how are you going to let this person treat your colleagues this way? We always hear about, and I've just grown pretty tired of it, but we hear Democrats, on the different shows, and somebody will invariably say, well, what are Republicans saying, like in the cloakroom? And, the answer is always, oh, they don't like Trump, and a lot of them are embarrassed. Well, apparently not enough.
Yeah.
Because
Not enough.
I don't want to hear about these guys being friendly when it doesn't matter. How do you, not one of those guys said, hey, you know what? Can we tone it down? Or they were giving her more time to do what
Yes.
she was doing. So
Yeah.
to me, man, that whole argument of, not all Republicans or whatever, I'm talking about the elected guys. I don't want to hear it because they
Yeah.
all sat there and let this woman crap all over their colleagues and didn't say a freaking word. None of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And you bring up a really interesting point around the shame aspect. And this is something I've started talking about. And I don't have the money to do it right now, but I'm going to see about how I can crowdsource the money to do it, is putting up billboards in
Mm,
elected officials' districts, independent of the Democrats, because I don't give a shit about the Democrats. There's some that are too weak and not doing anything. There's some that are incredibly powerful and deserve every accolade that they are getting, because they are setting and meeting the moment. Like Jasmine Crockett, Becca
mm.
Ballant. Those are two names that everybody should know.
Yes, I
Um,
just saw her exchange this morning. Um, Wears glasses.
from
She had
Vermont, the representative
right.
from Vermont, Becca Ballant. Yeah.
Yes, yes. She had and again, simple questions.
Mhm.
Howard Ludnick gets
Les
on
Wexner.
TV, says a big thing, hates the guy. Oh my God, he's so gross. He blackmails people, blah, blah, blah. Come to find out what, 6 months later, he's he's on the island. And
Mhm.
what's crazy about that is he tried to mitigate it in his explanation by saying, well, I was with my wife and my children and my nannies, plural, and another couple. And I'm thinking to myself, that's worse. You took your children to this place?
Yeah, like
What?
you
Shut up,
expose them
man. What
to
are you
that.
talking? You took your wife? What were y'all up to? And they were
Yeah.
just there for an hour. I mean, what? The islands in the ocean, man. Was he shipwrecked? I mean, why did he need to go to oh, hey, let's just stop by the island and have lunch. Get the fuck, man.
Yeah.
This is a family show, so I'm going to try to hold it. But
No, it ain't a family show. You can curse all you want.
don't let me off the chain, man.
I talked about Stephen Miller in the last show, and I have some
Woo.
nasty things to say about that human being, because they deserve it. They deserve the shame. And so I want to get your thoughts on this too about it, is before we shift into our questions themselves, is the idea of like these public shaming displays where we can possibly make a difference. Because I live in Arkansas. You know Arkansas fairly well.
I
You have
do.
history from Arkansas and in Arkansas currently. And I live in, which everybody in Arkansas lives in, basically, is a Republican district. Um, Most districts are Republican in
What town are you in?
Arkansas.
Are you in
I'm in the
Springdale?
Bentonville area, so the
Oh,
Northwest
Bentonville. Okay.
Arkansas. So I'm the
It's all
home of
right there
Walmart.
together, though.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in the home of Walmart area, where it's
Yep.
basically a corporate town. And if
Hmm.
Walmart doesn't want it in the area, it doesn't get built. Like
That is
Costco
true.
has been shut down multiple times because Walmart knows that. Well, Sam's Club specifically knows that if Costco comes into town, they'll get run out of business because
Game
Costco is
over.
just better. Um,
Yeah, it's
but
just like when they built that airport, everybody was like, "Why do they need an airport up there?" Well,
we've got like four in our area, like
yeah,
three like
I know.
little
It's
private airports for just people to
Yep.
fly into and out of corporate
Man, those
airports.
private jets got to land somewhere.
Yeah, those we you can tell who's flying to based on the plane that's leaving and like the time of day and like the where exactly they're which airfield they're coming from. You can tell who the CEOs or the executives are, or like who are the director level who are not good enough to get the
Mm.
like super fancy planes that fly out from one side of town. They get to come to like our side of town where it's near closer to the actual airport, and they have to deal with like less fancy
Tours.
accommodations. Yeah, the poors, us poors,
Yeah,
um,
people
is
riding in coach.
like lucky to get business class, or even lucky to get economy half the time. But my question around this is on targeted like shame. Is my idea is to crowdsource the funds to set up billboards. Say in my representatives is Steve Womack. He's a white dude. He is supposedly a veteran. He is a veteran, but he supposedly supports veterans. He supposedly cares about any of us, but he refuses to end this pedophilia ring that he is now complicit in actively If you're not against it, you're for it at the moment.
What's
Like
crazy about it,
silence
Nick, is all
is
these guys
action.
voted for the discharge. They voted for the
Yeah,
law,
they did.
the
Well,
law.
Steve
And now,
Womack didn't. Steve Womack wasn't there,
oh,
so
he
he
didn't.
doesn't have. No, he didn't vote yes or no. He wasn't actually there. He had a family emergency that pulled him away from Washington that day, so he doesn't even have the ability to say that he voted for it. He doesn't get that ability, and he's done nothing since. So my idea is put billboards up that say Representative, say Steve Womack, is protecting child rapists and traffickers.
Woo.
Call their office. And that's
Okay,
it. And I think
that's a
that
lie.
is a type of public shame that, I mean, it's not alleged anymore that these people are child sex traffickers and child rapists and destructive human beings. And if you're not actively against it, you are complicit in protecting it at this moment if you have the power to stop it. And so I want your thoughts. Do you think that type of shaming, that type of public shame, because I know one of his neighbors would come and ask him about it because art people in Arkansas are nosy as shit. And they Southern nice is I'm gonna be nice to you, your face, and then be a mean ass to behind you. Um, and so, do you think that type of thing would be effective in re-engaging people into these types of discussions or just the discussions in general that we need them to be a part of?
Nick, I would like to say it would, but I'm not really sure that it would. I mean, man, if these people cannot get embarrassed just right where we're at right now, you know, he'll go on Fox News and he'll say, "Oh, it's a stunt. Those radical leftists, blah blah blah." Feeling. I don't know, man. Look,
I'm trying to be creative on some of these
I know, man,
solutions.
but I'm just saying, nothing seems to really. They have got a force field around themselves that prevents shame from even entering the picture. Because look at where we are. We got a president who's a 30, 34 felonies?
Yep,
So a
34
34 count
convicted felonies.
felon. Even before Epstein, we had like 24 women saying, "Hey, this guy, he's bad. He forced himself on that, all this stuff," and nobody was embarrassed to say that they voted for this guy. And you had Bondi yesterday saying he was the greatest president we've ever had.
Yeah, what a lie.
And I'm hearing this going, "Oh my God, this is." So we're already in the upside down, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, so you put those signs up, man, and I wish you the best, but just don't be surprised if people get mad at you and
Oh,
start
I figured
attacking.
they would.
People will do, they will expend all kinds of energy not to find out what his position is, but to find out who called him out. Okay. That's the way that it is the strangest phenomenon I've ever seen in my life, honestly.
Well,
So,
yeah, and that's a good
what are you
point.
going to do?
Yeah, that's it's the thing is I'm trying to be I want to find creative ways to get people re-engaged because it's not so much I want to get like my philosophy on things around like voting and access to voting here is I don't really care about MAGA too much. Like MAGA,
Mhm.
if you guys want to listen and learn, good. Like take the cues, listen and learn. I'm not going to actively court you right now. But there's so many people who are just disengaged from the system because they don't ever see anything. All they see is Fox News. And I want to and I'd be interested and I don't know how it would be trackable because I'm not in that system yet on like how to know if these types of things would make an impact is would something like that make an impact where people aren't accustomed to seeing these types of attacks on
Mm.
or these types of call outs on their representatives because
I think,
nobody
look,
cares about Arkansas.
I
Nobody
think
cares
that
about us.
there are people who would go, okay, what is, look, I'm not going to say no one would
Yeah.
respond favorably. It's just that I don't know at the end of the day, what is the result going to be? I mean, and I just don't feel like it's, this guy saying, changing, or even, nobody resigns in shame anymore. I mean,
No,
look at
they don't.
look at dude, we got folks in Lithuania stepping aside. They're looking at, I can't remember if it was the Olympic Committee or the FIFA committee. I just saw a headline yesterday where the board of one of these organizations, it may very well be the Olympic Committee, they're meeting because I think it's the chairman, maybe, is in the I almost said the X Files, man.
Well,
my
it kind of
my
is.
brain is trying to protect me, man. It's like I don't even want to
I
think
call them
about
the pedophiles at this point
it. But
because it's not
yeah,
just Epstein.
yeah, but they're like, okay, what should we do? This guy's name has come up. Do we need to get rid of him? I don't know what the ultimate thing will be, but look, we've had an ambassador to the U.S. get called home in the U.K. and subsequently, ousted, not just from his job, but from his entire freaking party. He has left the Liberal Party. And I don't even know that this guy actually did anything. I mean, his name's in there, he's associated. So we got folks that are neck deep in this stuff, and they're mad at you for bringing it up.
I know one person who is kind of mad at me, maybe me specifically, but the group I associate with
Oh yeah.
is Michael Cohen. He's
Oh,
not happy
oh
with us because
no, he's not.
he he appears in the files in a way that is very suspect, or and has a lot of association with that network that's very suspect. And we have some questions based on evidence that has come out in the files. And he keeps saying, where's the evidence? Show us the evidence, provide evidence. Well, we're fucking providing it. The files are evidence. And so conversations are evidence. And so, like, you hit a nail on the head in all of this. And this is why I think what I'm trying to do here with the Intelligent Masculinity series is so important, is because men don't know how to act right now. Men are the problem. Like, we done fucked up. We're fucked up.
Yeah,
Men are fucked up right now in so many ways because we've allowed
our track
ourselves.
record's kind of bad, isn't it?
And when
Depending
I
on
say
the
men,
subject, right?
yeah, and when I say men mostly, though, I specifically in this context am more talking to men who look my shade of skin tone, who are whiter, who are probably maybe on the incel community because y'all need some fucking help.
Huh.
Is you don't have models. You don't have people who can teach you what masculinity might look like. You don't have models to challenge you. You don't have people who are willing to tell you no and say, yeah, you are at fault. And I think this discussion, these types of discussions on masculinity, on how we evaluate ourselves, on how we learn, on how we move forward, are so incredibly important right now because we need to know what it looks like to be a positive masculine figure and how do we model it ourselves and do it as a discipline, as a practice where we are actively doing it and not passively waiting for others to join us, is promoting it. And so I'm using this series to do that. And I've gotten to have some incredible interviews with some amazing people. And Marlon, I know ours is going to be the same because they all have been incredible. I have learned some really wonderful things from each person. We all bring our own uniqueness to this story, and it's a better humaning series. And because I've had that comment before, is why just men? Well, because we're the problem. Trans people aren't the problem. LGBTQ
Wait,
plus
you mean
people
to tell me
aren't the
it's not drag
problem.
queens?
No, drag queens ain't the problem. I've seen
Hold
some of
it.
those drag queens
Stop
read
the
books,
press.
and damn, those drag queens know how to
I
fucking
thought it
write.
was the drag queens, man.
I've been lied to. And
It's so funny. Who's not in the Epstein files, right?
yeah,
Obama's not in there. Drag queen's not in there.
nope,
Trans people. I mean, it's the
nope.
craziest thing. It's just a bunch of white men wilding out. I mean, it's just beyond anything I've ever heard of. But anyway,
Yeah.
I
And
digress.
we're the problem. And so we need to fix it. So it's on us men to challenge each other and challenge ourselves to self evaluate, grow, take the onus off other people to do the work, and we do it ourselves. And so I'm doing that by asking some incredible men really cool questions, really fun questions. This question set has some serious ones here in the beginning. And then towards the end, we get into our more whimsical side where we get into our Mulan theme song of I'll Make a Man Out of You, and the clarion call to action for men are Let's Go Girls for men. Or at least it was when I was in high school and in choir, and we we all thought it was amazing because it was a power up song.
Mhm.
And so a little bit of challenge and depth, and we'll see where this all leads, but a little bit of fun as we do this, and hopefully a lot of bit of fun and learning. And so, everyone in the audience, we have another incredible crowd of people with us. Thank you for the over 1,000 people who are currently here listening on Substack. Um, thank you for being a part of this discussion
Wow,
and
1,000
helping
people are
us.
going to hear what I hear me mess this up.
Don't worry, I'll post it after too,
No, no, don't
with a
rush.
write up so that everyone can hear you
I
do it again.
demand to have, quote clearance.
Oh, you'll even get a good body quote at the beginning. I like to do like a nice full body quote of something you said during the show. So pontificate if you want. Um, have fun
That
while
I
you're
can do.
here. And I'm excited for this. So let's get into our questions.
Okay, let's go.
And our first one is a our first one is a two-part question, and it's around the spectrum of who has influenced in your life, and
Mhm.
from both of the traditional spectrums, I guess, of masculine and feminine. So we'll start with the masculine side, though, is who has been the most influential masculine figure in your life and why? And I do want to also preface this, it can be for a negative reason. It does not always have to be for a positive, though the positives seem to be the best, obviously. So re-asking again, who's been the most influential male figure or masculine figure in your life?
So, so I have a curve for you. This is going to be a little bit of both, positive and negative. And I would say that now I was raised by my stepfather. I never knew my biological father. Um, I'm the oldest of four boys. So, just to set the scene in terms of the masculinity discussion, four boys. Mom's the only woman in the house most of the time. Um, I did not know that I was not his natural son until I got old enough to do the math of how long they'd been married and how old I was. And it occurred to me they must be messing up. They don't even know how long they've been married. It's because, and so, yeah, I figured it out, and that was about the limit of my math skills. But um, so on the positive side, um, he raised me as his own. And for most of my life, I would not have known the difference. Um, and he was a guy in retrospect. I'm actually writing a memoir, and I just finished a chapter about him. Very interesting guy. Um, he was kind of a Renaissance man in his way. And what I mean by that is um, he worked well, not quite in your area, more closer to Harrison, but Winthrop Rockefeller. There's Winrock Farms, and it's still there. It's a corporate entity now, but this is back in the '60s. So Winthrop Rockefeller, one of the sons, so Nelson Rockefeller, and so on. I believe Lawrence, and there's another one maybe. But Winthrop was the renegade who didn't want anything to do with the business that made them all rich, right? So he moved to to Arkansas and decided to become um, a cattleman, imported cattle from I don't know freaking Brazil, or he could do that. Literally built the infrastructure of that part of the state because it was like people still in outhouses kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he built this enormous compound, with an airstrip, everything on Petty Jean Mountain, which is not that far from you. And my father basically ran what was called the big house where, the family lived. And it was an enormous thing. He had a lot of authority. I mean, literally in the summer, he would hire all my uncles would be up there working for him, kitchen, doing all kinds of stuff. So, that's kind of my earliest memory of him, of this guy. And it never occurred to me that we were the only Black family living on Petty Jean Mountain. So, and that's why we left, because I couldn't ride the school bus to school with the other kids, right?
Mhm.
So anyway, all that to say, he did a lot of really interesting things. For a time, he was the head chef at the one of the country clubs in Little Rock, Pleasant Valley Country Club. It was new back in those days. And so I don't know, for a guy who didn't have a college degree, he just had a lot of gravitas. And 6'5" or 6'6", just a big, massive guy. Looked a lot like James Earl Jones. He had the gap in the teeth, and people,
Yeah.
people just were like, "Oh, he looks," So he just had this force about him. And since I was the oldest, I caught a lot of his, not anger, but just he wanted me to be something that he knew he would never be, right? And the way that got communicated, in a lot of ways, it was things that I really did not like. Like, here's this book. Let me know when you finish it, and we'll talk. I don't want to read this book, that kind of thing. I mean, we were the only kids in the hood listening to Tchaikovsky and Richard Wagner and all this shit. All our other friends, had like, the Isley Brothers and all the good stuff. But he would just make us do these things that we were like, why? He's making us, why would I do this? But here I am now. I mean, I can hear a classical song, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to know, maybe not the exact thing, but I'll know something. So, I have an appreciation for a lot of things that were unusual for kids at that time, especially Black kids, especially, we weren't rich, but, my dad, your dad's a chef, you get to eat oysters Rockefeller, just because, right? Just all those little things. And so that was the good side. And I should say, I had an uncle that over the years was very, very similar in terms of influence, almost like a father figure. He didn't even have kids. And so, um, for whatever reason, they spent a lot of time with me. He and his wife, my Aunt Minnie, who I'll get to. Between the two of them, I have to feel like they kept me out of trouble. They kept me. I never had the urge to do anything really wrong, and I was kind of a renegade kid. I'm not saying I was an angel. I got in trouble. I'd get suspended from school, but it was like my friends would get suspended for fighting. I get suspended because I'm walking girls to class and I'm late for class all the time. Look, dude, come on, you can't be tardy every day, right?
Well, you can. It's not recommended.
It's not advised. So
Not
anyway, I
advised.
just want to make it clear, these two guys in their different ways. My uncle Roger was a little bit older, ex-military. He was an ex-Marine, and when I got to, my parents divorced when I was in college. So that kind of, that split really changed everything between me and my father. Around that time was when I got into the finance business. And just to give you, I said it's good and bad with my father. And I never really ever called him my stepfather. until after he passed away, and I think about him differently. Sometimes people say really negative things to you that also motivate the hell out of you.
Yeah.
And when I got hired by this firm, and I guess the name of the firm Stevens Incorporated. You're in Arkansas. You may have heard of them. They're the one of the biggest firms, I guess, in the world, maybe. But at that time, it was the largest investment bank, away from New York. They had never hired a black person in my role. Mostly, I mean, there was a black secretary. There was, um, I always joke the head janitor wasn't even black. We had black janitors, but the head janitor was a white guy. So it was that. So it
Yeah.
was really unusual, and I give them credit. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I made my case, but they still had to pull the trigger, and it wasn't like DEI didn't even exist, right? So I'm really I realized that I've done something kind of, to be proud of, and I visited with my dad, and I said, this is what I've done, and I had my little business card, and he looked at it, and he said, and he actually said this like it was a compliment. He said, "Out of all my sons, you're the last one I expected to amount to anything," and it hit me like a ton of bricks, dude. I, but you know what? I'm one of those kind of people that I was like, "I'll fucking show him." Like I
Yep.
really took that, and well, yeah, that was, I don't know, 40 something years ago. I still remember exactly like how he said it. And he said it and just kind of went on to the next thing. And I'm sitting there going, what did he what did he say
Like
about me?
like you
you
just you
know,
just rocked my world,
but that
and
was,
you're gonna
I
move
think,
on.
the first moment that I realized he had differentiated me from his natural kids. Do you
Mm.
see what I mean? He
Yep.
didn't expect anything from me because I wasn't really his, um, and so it kind of went downhill from there.
That
um,
really sucks.
but at the same time, my uncle Roger, same time frame, different conversation. He he would now I'm going to draw you this picture. He and my aunt Minnie had a huge backyard, and they had this big pecan tree. And I guess in the fall they would send everybody 5 pounds of pecans that you didn't really want, but whatever. And he had this huge brick grill that he had built. So he had a couple of chairs, and he's sitting out there next to the whatever it was he was barbecuing. And he says, "Marlon, I need you to listen to me. This is going to be kind of, but I feel like I need to say it the way he said it to me." He says, "So you're going to be at that place. You're going to be working around a whole lot of white folks that have never been around anybody like you. And I need you to kind of adjust yourself because," and he knows the kind of guy I am, right? I'm the kind of person that's gonna have a snappy fucking comeback when
Mhm.
challenged, right? It's the skill an asthmatic kid who wears glasses has to develop,
Yeah.
right? Or you're gonna be getting your ass whipped all the time. So knowing that, he said, "The first time one of those guys calls you a nigger, you can't hit him." And I'm like, "Uncle Roger,
Oof.
what are you talking about? Nobody's gonna do anything like, this is a workplace, right?"
Oof.
And he says, "Look, boy, I need you to listen to me. Something's gonna happen. One of those guys who ain't used to being around, I don't know, I think I was 25, 26, a few pounds lighter, okay, a lot of pounds lighter." But I was sort of in
Yeah.
my
You're in
prime,
your
I guess
prime.
you could say, or I thought I was, where I thought, and he said they are not going to accept you just rolling up in there without, it's almost like going into prison where somebody's going to challenge you.
Yeah.
And I listened to him and I just kind of walked away thinking, oh, this old man doesn't really know. This is, I'm wearing a suit to work every day. Nobody's going to be talking like that. And one day I'd been to lunch and nobody ever said that exactly to me. There was one occasion where this guy just kept referring to me as a boy over and over and over.
Mm.
Here, boy, here's your whatever, you know. But this time I came back from lunch and there was just a piece of paper laying on my desk. I picked it up and it was a inward application for employment. And it just had this laundry list of, oh, you think of the trope. It was, you know, um, goal in life, right? To marry a white woman, to, what, something, 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 Um, you write your name, mother's name, father's name, if known. Yeah, I remember it. I have it in a box somewhere. Um,
That's that's
and
ugly.
dude, this was I had actually been there for a couple of years when this happened. And I blew my stack. I couldn't believe, and I just stood up, and this is a trading floor, right? And I was like, who the fuck put this on my desk? And no one said anything.
Mm.
And at some point, someone said, well, for all we know, you just did this yourself. Okay, to start, to throw the race card, or I don't know, something. So I went to what at that time was uh, human resources, or
Mhm.
it was personnel. They didn't even
Yeah.
have human resources, and I expected something to happen, and all I got was the question, well, what do you want us to do? And I'm like, well, you tell me. I mean, I'm right,
That's
and so nothing happened. So anyway, those are
yeah.
the kind of things that uncle tell it just giving me, because had I not had that conversation with him, chances are I would have thought that I can't, as a man, I can't let anybody, offend me like that without striking back. But what he said, he continued and he said, okay, you can hit whoever does that, but you're the one that's going to get fired.
Yeah.
And look at where you work. No one's going to hire you. These are these are kind of guys. You were talking about Walmart. This is a company that took Walmart public. So if Walmart can decide they don't want something to happen, these guys are in that same category, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not accusing the firm in any way, right? I mean, I don't think I've ever worked anywhere in my life where there wasn't some level of something racist that might happen. Even when even when I worked at a black owned investment firm, right? So I guess I kind of strayed off of your question maybe
No,
a
I
little,
think this is fantastic. This gives
but
so much
that's what I
amazing
think
context.
about, Nick. Those two men in their different ways, my father, getting me to manhood without, ending up in jail or dead somewhere. That was a feat, dude. I mean, I came up, I was 10 years old in 1968. So there was a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
Um, and just really making me into a person that's curious about lots of different things. The stuff that he forced on me, the Greek mythology and,
Mhm.
literature, all that stuff that I didn't really like, but I got into it. And then on the other hand, my Uncle Roger was just, he's just old school. And he's like, look, boy, I've seen this before. Nobody wants to tell you, but just so you know, there's going to be somebody in there that's going to test you. And you just got to, you can't fall for it.
Yeah.
So now on the female side, mom, and I'll just leave it there. She did the rest. She's the one that taught me how to drive. Most of you, you have the picture in your mind of a guy, a dad teaching his son. No, my mom taught me how to drive, taught me how to mow the lawn, all kinds of stuff, because my dad traveled. So, um, that's those kinds. Hey, taught me how to cook. Now, the crazy thing is, my mom's, you know, Arkansas, good old Southern cooking,
Mm-hmm.
dad chef. Dude, that is a recipe for trouble, because
I
he's
bet.
over here. Oh man, holidays, they would have fights over the menu because he's
Oh.
trying to do prime rib and she's like, what are you talking about? Turkey and dressing. So we'd have both. Um, the only I'll close
I
here.
wouldn't
The
be
only
mad about both.
other woman that really comes to mind is my Aunt Minnie, who was Uncle Roger's wife. Now, I had teachers. Keep in mind, I went to school until I was in the seventh grade. All my teachers, except one, were black. After that, I had no black teachers. Well, I had a few. Miss Roundtree was my first grade teacher. And this is in a time when the teachers knew your parents. So you
Yep.
couldn't just come in there and clown and think nothing was going to happen, right? But Miss Roundtree and I'll put it this way. When I graduated from high school, I lived in a different town, um, in Pine Bluff. And Miss Roundtree and I were still in contact with each other. She's my first grade teacher, dude.
That's
When I
amazing.
come home from, I got literally a graduation card with, like $20 or something. I'm living 50 miles away. I get a card from Miss Roundtree. When I would come home, because we moved back to the Little Rock area. And when I would come home from school, there's not one time that I wouldn't visit Miss Roundtree just to check in. You know, it's so funny how she was such a big figure when I was in the first grade, but the reality was I don't even think she was 5 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
But she just seemed enormous to me as a kid, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, man, that's kind of my story as far as the influencers.
I love that. I love that. It sounds like you've had some very amazing people in your life who have done both positive and negative things for you. It's, I think one of the reasons why this is so critical in my eyes is because you had to learn to regulate other people's behavior so that you wouldn't get fired for their behavior. And that's such a toxic trait of white masculinity in a lot of ways, or fragile masculinity and this old style of masculinity. So, leading into our next question is, if you were to put a definition down to it, and it can be a concept of ideas, but a definition down to it of what intelligent masculinity is, how would you define it for yourself?
Hmm. So I have, to be honest with you, I've never seen those two words put together in a sentence. When you sent me this, I'm like, what the hell? What is he talking about, right? But okay, so I would put it this way. I have two sets of kids. I have two sons that are, grown in their 30s, and then I have Benjamin and Hallie. Ben's away in college now. Hallie Claire just finished. And my I think the difference in the way I raised the two of them, my two older sons, my first wife and I got divorced before they were very, I mean, I think my oldest son might have been in the third grade, and his brother, they was still in diapers. I was a lot more harsh with them, because I just thought that was how you did it, right? So they got the switch and the belt and all that kind of stuff. So then you fast forward. so Hallie Claire is probably 10 or 15 years younger than, the youngest of those two. So I raised them in a totally different fashion. I've never laid a hand on either one of them. And I think it has a whole lot to do with how I came to maybe evolve in the way that, my idea of what a dad is supposed to do.
Hmm.
Those two guys, now they weren't with me all the time. So I think in a way I felt like I had to make up for the fact that there wasn't a guy on the scene, and it was difficult. But a lot of that was communicated in like punishment and regulating them. And I'm not, I'm not saying that I didn't try to replicate some of the same things that I got. And I'm sure they got stories about shit that I made them read that they, that they didn't want to read. Like I had mine, but I think I was just a lot tougher with them because I felt like as a man I had to make up for something that I didn't think they were going to get.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, they've both turned out okay, but I feel like they probably could have done just as well with a little more of what I've given my second attempt at fatherhood, if you know what I'm saying. So I guess early on my concept was something like almost from a violence kind of approach, like I'm the nuclear option. And if you don't do right, then guess what? You're going to get some. And now, and I mean, the good news is they have turned out to be some pretty decent men. And I'm not even saying that I was doing it necessarily wrong. It was just what I knew at the time. And it's not like I was beating the crap out of them every day, but they've got stories that
Yeah.
I'm now hearing these stories about how I was scaring the shit out of them sometimes, and I thought I was, um, doing my job. On the other hand, especially my daughter, so like I said, I'm one of four boys. So you can imagine everything growing up came from a masculine angle, right? There were just no girls around. It's my mom. That was it. And so it colors how you look at women and how you treat women when you're not really around women a lot.
Hmm.
You have these um, ideas about how women think and what they like and all this stuff. And 99% of it was wrong. All I had to do was just meet the right woman who would tell me, dude, you're fucked up. You don't know what you but no, seriously though, in my sort of generation, there was only one daughter. And she's a little older than me. We weren't around each other that much. So having a daughter made me just totally rethink shit that I would say that I used to think was funny, right? Um, the whole corporal punishment thing.
Hmm.
Do I want my daughter to be scared of me? Well, no. Just these things you're thinking about them, and so I never thought about it in like the way that you framed it, right? But I guess I did gain some intelligence sort of just through that whole process of raising two sets of kids in really different circumstances. And now, I've got these are some talented kids. I mean, my son's away on a full scholarship, computer engineering. We can't even talk to this guy. We don't know what he's talking about half the time. And my daughter, she just finished with a degree in art and art history, and just so talented. So when you have those people with those kinds of creative energy, especially her, the last thing I wanted to do was crush that, self-esteem, right?
Hmm.
And I spent a lot of time thinking about that.
I think that's really beautiful. It reminds me, to be honest, of partially of my family story. Is my oldest brother is 14 years older than I am,
Yeah.
um, and so I had a different parent than my brother did. I had a different, same father, but
Okay.
a different dad in the end. Like he learned some very valuable lessons with my oldest brother, and that translated into a much different parental experience for me and my we your story in a as you grew
You
up
kind of
my
broke up on me a little bit there, Nick.
throughout has does this that's been every so often.
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's good. Okay, so I have been able to put down like a definition of intelligent masculinity, a thesis around this, um,
Mm.
and I want to introduce it to you to help maybe color a little bit of the discussion and add some flavor into it for the next set of questions too. Is my definition is boiled down as intelligent masculinity is the refusal to outsource accountability onto others and the discipline to live with the consequences of your actions and values.
Mm.
And it seems from the description that you have been giving is you grew. You didn't outsource the accountability of, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, or like you didn't outsource that accountability onto, say, your daughter to manage that as she grew up. You internalized it and said, I don't want to do this, and pass that harm on. And that is part of intelligent masculinity, is being able to model and to model that growth and be self-aware. And so even if you didn't know it before, is I think you fit
Believe
really
me,
well
I
into
did.
that definition. I
I
think you fit well into it.
stumbled upon it. No,
Yeah, and I think
I think though it was really like, I think once when Hallie Claire was little, like, I don't know, 10 maybe, she did something. Maybe, snapped at her mom in a way that just was not, it wasn't going to fly. And I think I smacked her on the butt with my hand. Nothing, nothing made, but the look on her face, I couldn't live with it, man. It was like disbelief, but also I can't believe he did that. Just,
mhm,
and it wasn't like a whole lot of crime. It wasn't even like it was meant to cause pain, but just the act of that, that violence. And people can disagree on, corporal punishment. I mean, I certainly grew up with it. And hell, I'm old enough where, they light you up at school with a paddle, man. And so it was just the way that I had been trained to deliver discipline.
yeah.
And I think at that point I made the decision that, okay, I'm gonna have to do something else. And thank God they invented the cell phone, dude, because give me your phone. That was the new ass whipping.
Yeah, I've found it's actually easier and it's
Oh,
more
the impact
insightful. The
is
impact is
very
if you take the
immediate.
charger and not the phone itself. You take the charger away because then they can't charge the device. So they have to limit themselves and self-regulate. Do I want to
Dude,
continue to
that's
use
just
it
mean.
until it's
I never
dead?
even thought of that. Give me your charger. It just
It
doesn't
teaches a lot of
turn off the phone
self-control.
like like I would like.
Like you take the charger away, you still have the device, you can use it, but once it's dead, well, that's
Eventually,
on you. That's on you. These
wow.
are natural consequences. We use natural consequences in our house. Like, does the consequence to the action fit as a real meaningful punishment for the like event. Like, am I going to take your tablet away for some things? Maybe. Am I going to take your cell phone away for some things? Maybe. Or am I going to have to remove you from having friends for a little while? Like, those are two different punishments because of different actions. Uh,
Listen, man, I got that one. I did. Here's the kind of stuff I would do. We were grocery shopping with for whatever reason our dad was doing it, and so there's four of us and our dad, and it's Saturday morning. Everybody we know is in the, I don't know, Safeway or wherever it was,
mhm.
and we're walking around, and I saw a bar of Ivory soap out of the package, just a bar of soap laying on the floor. And I picked it up and stuffed it in my sock. I don't know why, and I
Mhm.
even said something to one of my brothers, man, look at this. And, look what I'm doing. And so we get out to the car, and I don't know, I guess at some age, we just don't really understand consequence. We're just not thinking that extra step ahead, right?
Mhm.
We get out to the car, and I don't know, two shopping carts full of groceries. So dad's spending a bunch of money. And I pull this bar of soap out of my sock, and he sees it and he's like, what the hell's that? And I'm proud of it. I'm like, some Ivory
Look at
soap,
my
dad.
bar of soap I got.
Dude, we went back into the store, me and him, and the bar of Ivory soap. And he walked up to one of the registers and asked to speak to the manager. And I'm standing there looking like an idiot. All of, various people that we know are like, what's going on with Marlon and Cliff Weems? What are they doing? And on the thing, and calls whoever the person is. And he shows up in a minute. And meanwhile, I'm standing there in the middle of, this is not self checkout. It's like people doing, And so I had to explain to him that I had committed a crime. I had stolen some soap, and I had to return it and apologize and all this stuff. I am telling you, that he did not whip me. Nobody laid a hand on me. It was the most embarrassing, one of the most embarrassing things ever. Because by the time I got home, everybody knew Marlon had stolen some soap and had to bring it back.
Oh,
And it had
everybody
gotten
in
all
town
over.
knew.
People were calling the house and what's going on with Marlon? Just my mom's calling her sisters over in Little Rock. You won't believe what Marlon did. He just broke my heart. He stole some soap. So yeah, man. I mean, there are a lot of ways to get the point across.
See, shame is a powerful emotion.
It
Shame
works,
is
man. Maybe
powerful.
too bad my parents aren't around. They can fix this shit. They knew how to embarrass the hell out of me. Let me tell you.
Oh, I bet. I bet that's what brothers are good for sometimes, is to embarrass the hell out of each other.
Woo.
And this is so you've actually answered in a lot of ways the next question, which was how do you model it in your own life? Is you've explained a lot about your growth and how you've modeled like and how you have been taught these types of things through various behaviors. So that story is so on point of like what a natural consequence is for
Listen, man,
something like
I
that
never
is your
stole anything again. And it
no.
was like a 25-cent bar of soap. But dude, that is why, like, I worked on Wall Street, and it never even entered my mind to break the, I just didn't want the consequences.
Hmm.
Um, and look, there are people I have known people that have done really crazy stuff in my field of business. And I'm just like, how'd you even think of that? Where's your mind? What is the progression that led
Yeah.
you to, I'm just going to write myself a check out of this customer's account? What
How'd
are
you
you
get there,
thinking
dude?
about that causes you to come up with that? I
Yeah.
just, dude, also, I'm scared as shit about prison. I saw
Yeah,
Oz
I don't want to go to
in
prison.
The Wire and shit. I don't want to go to jail.
No,
And
no,
I'm the
even if
kind
it's
of
3
person,
square meals a day, I ain't trying to go there.
you know what? I pass.
Hard
So,
pass, hard pass
so
on
yeah,
that one.
I really, I'll tell you something in that question. I think that's the one. Like, what do you do to self-evaluate?
Yeah, so what do you do to self-reflect and self-evaluate?
Okay, so um, a- I'm writing a book. As I have been writing about, just different experiences. One of them, I'll give you the story. I worked in New York. Worked before I went to New York. I worked in Little Rock, so I covered um, one of the largest black-owned banks. It was actually a bank. It no longer is around, which is I wrote about it several years ago. It really broke my heart because I handled. It took me forever to get them to do business with me, and I didn't realize it, but they did not believe I was black. I was working in Little Rock at this firm. I was the only black person who did what I did, and so for a long time, I think they you're just talking to people on the phone, and who is this redneck from Arkansas that keeps calling us, right? And I went to meet with these guys, and some funny scenes, man. If you've ever, I don't know if you've been to the New York Stock Exchange, but if you go into the lobby, there is this gigantic statue of a bull and a bear in
Mhm.
Mortal Kombat. The bull market, the bear market.
Yeah.
And so I'm supposed to have breakfast with these guys, and I'm supposed to meet them by the statue. And I'm standing there, and I see these two black guys walk in, and I'm like, well, they're my people, and they just walk right by me. And I'm like, well, maybe, I shouldn't assume that these are going to be black folks. And so, yeah, they just walked right by me several times. And finally I said one of their names, and we go in and we have breakfast. And at some point, one of them says, look, dude, we had no idea we were meeting with a black person because you're from Arkansas. And we just thought, so anyway, I do business with this bank, and I'm writing about it. And so for context, Freedom National Bank was started by Jackie Robinson. So just the idea of doing business with this bank for me was like I'm stepping off into some history every time I went to visit them. One of the guys that I had to deal with there um, was a Russian immigrant. Nice guy, but very slouchy.
Yeah.
He wore like a long army surplus, coat, green, military. That's what he'd wear to work. His ties were like this white. He just wasn't the kind of guy that you would think of as being an investment officer. So
Yeah.
I wrote about this incident where I invited him to dinner, and he asked if he could bring someone, bring a date. And I'm like, sure, yeah, I'm on an expense account. What do I care? And I was I think we were having dinner like at like 21 or one of these places that's really, hard to get into back then anyway. And, it's elegant, man. It's really a nice restaurant. And I'm there in my suit and tie and all this. And he walks in with a woman who to look at her, you would have thought she was a streetwalker. There's just no other way to put it. She had like a rabbit fur coat on, like a little short coat, and it wasn't her dress or skirt wasn't much longer than that. Platform. It was just the whole picture was at that time very embarrassing to
Mhm.
me. And he's dressed like I've described, and I'm like, I'm going to be sitting here looking like I'm looking, and I'm having a meal with these people who do not look like they should be here. And when I wrote about it, I was really embarrassed that I had thought that I had felt that way at that time. And, it said a lot more about me than it did about them. Right.
Mhm.
But I didn't realize it until I wrote it down on paper. This this scene, right? And I'm writing, and I'm like, oh shit, dude, that's really kind of fucked up. You kind of really should do better. And so that kind of stuff is how I regulate myself. I try to think outside my own head a little bit, and um, you know, knowing everybody isn't going to fit the model that you have in your mind about them, right?
I think that's I think that's really awesome is the idea of like, well, one, I think that's a common stereotype that we are all fighting through in ways too about
Yeah.
others. Like we all hold these internal biases around people that can come out as very racist, can are often are based on really bad just generalizations of cultures, and then we don't ever challenge ourselves on them in the moment. And that's the hardest part to do, is challenge yourself in the moment. And yet self-reflection is a tool to be able to look back on that, maybe not through shame for yourself or through like putting yourself down that it happened, but as a learning point of, man,
Yeah.
I was bad right there. I should
Yeah,
do
I
better.
wrote it down, man, and I was writing and I was describing how these people looked and how I looked, and it was, I looked right and they looked wrong, and then I was just kind of writing it.
Well, I'd
I had
say you looked white and they looked wrong, is in that situation, as you were taught in to look white
I
at
was
that moment.
in, yeah, I was definitely trying to fit the prescribed way that I was supposed to look, right? Because I'm this investment guy, and I got all the different accoutrement, I Rolex watch and doing all this stuff.
Hmm.
And it's so funny because at the same time, when you talk about appearances, if I pulled off that suit and tie, people I worked with would not know who I was. I would have people that I worked around, I'd be, I don't know, grocery store, and dude, they'd walk right by me. I'm in a hoodie and some warm-ups, they wouldn't even know who I was. So yeah, it gave me something to think about, and especially given the fact that as a black person, appearances, we get judged on our appearances. And look at me, that's just exactly what I did in that situation. And so yeah, it took me a few decades to write about it and for it to kind of jump out at me. But I try to be honest with myself. And
And
yeah, I
that's
fucked up
important.
time.
Yeah,
And
the
I don't think
honesty
I
is the
treated them
important
any
part.
different. I think I was personally sitting there like, how fast can we get through with this meal? Because this really doesn't look right, and I'm embarrassed. But I don't, I'm from Arkansas. I was still polite, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I can't believe this guy's walked in here with this woman that looks like a streetwalker. I don't even think it wasn't his wife, but still, right? And
Hmm.
I'm just judging, man, the whole time, just like, I got to hurry up and get out of here because people are going to see this. And I don't even know any of these people in the restaurant, you
Yeah.
know? And so, yeah, it was, my bad. I messed up that time.
And it's being able to admit that fault and grow from it, even if it took years, is important, is
Better
part of
late
the
than
self
never, I guess,
reflection.
right?
Yeah. Like, I'll admit I'm the bad guy in some people's stories. Like, I will freely admit that. And I have to learn from those mistakes. And I have to be able to move forward from them and not let them hold me hold me in place. And this is where we're going to shift a little into our whimsy, because we've gone a little long. But Marlon, this has been so fun. Thank you for staying long with me for
Hey,
this.
man,
Um,
I was really intrigued with this, and I was like, God help me get through this.
well,
I don't know.
I'd say this has been like just an amazing discussion, and the nearly 13 and a half that or 13 1.3 whatever 1300 people who are here with us, nearing 1400
Wow.
on Substack. Like, y'all, this is amazing. Thank you for being here with us for this discussion and hearing us and
Absolutely.
joining, like, these conversations, and hopefully you bring these forward into your lives and into the real world and share them with the men in your lives who may need to hear some of this stuff, who need to hear these hard truths and grow from them without shaming themselves that they're trying to grow. Like, that's part of this process too. Is there's a reason I have a coffee mug here that says, now you know, so you can grow. It's also one of my merch mugs, Notes of the Week with Walter Ryan, if you want to get one. But like this, yeah, and I want to get shirts around and stuff around the intelligent masculinity so that I can eventually give back into the community too, more so. But like, there's a reason I have that mug that says, now you know, so you can grow. It's now we know, so we can grow from this point and we
That's a
can
good
teach
one. I
others how
like
to
that.
grow. Thanks. And
I've been
so
threatening to get some merch, man. I need some Journeyman merch.
you should. I'm trying to
I think
figure
I'm
out how to
gonna.
help
I don't
host.
know. I
I'm trying
mean,
to figure out how to help host people as like secondary merch shops so that they can easily host their own merch without the price tag, because that stuff,
listen. I
it's
mean, my
expensive.
my daughter. I'm really lucky, man. I've got a person. I mean, she just did an intro for a show that I'm doing called the Journeyman Unfiltered. I've been using that for a while, but usually it's podcasts and stuff. But it's nice to have a creator in the house
Mm-hmm.
because she did that like in an afternoon or something. And it was, and she also, she's setting up her business to, I mean, this kid had her own business like in high school. She had an Etsy store
Oh,
and she
that's
was
awesome.
selling her art, selling prints. And, COVID messed it all up. But so now that she's out of school, she's revisiting that. And I'm trying to help on the, just on the business intelligence side of it. But she's the one with the skills of you know, setting up the merch shop and all of that. So it's
I encourage it. I
coming.
think it's cool. It's
Yeah.
coming. It should.
I
I
mean,
think
who
we're
wouldn't want a
it's
journeyman hoodie? I mean, come on. With the
Yeah, who
little
doesn't want our faces on their shirts or on the
fit,
back, and like
really.
cool quotes, and like this, a friend of mine was the one who designed the artwork for this. She
Okay.
made the art, and it was just a quote I said during the show, and I asked her if I could use it, and she's like, yeah, absolutely, this would be great, this would fit that quote really well. And she sent me the design for it, and like, that's I want, like, I love that, is getting the community involved, in like people who aren't even part of this like directly are so excited to be like parts of it. And it's fun because we get to celebrate the creativity, and this is too where we get to shift to our whimsy and a little bit of creativity. Oh, Kimmy, how do you get to the merch shop? There's a QR code over Marlon's head for Sick of This Shop, or shop.sickofthisshitpublications.com, is how you get to the merch. And it is tagged in all of the post show notes. So if you want to get to that, there is a link that says, come to the Sick of This Shop, Sick of This merch shop. And peruse around. There's Chronically Illing Out and Notes of the Week stuff right now, but we're going to be adding more in as we go.
So I'm
And
I'm
so
just figuring out how to look at the Substack chat room. I cannot believe how many people are in there, and I see some familiar faces or familiar names, I should say. Um, but in fact, someone was I think asking about my daughter's art. She's on Substack, so you can DM her. I mean, it's Hallie Claire Weems, and just Google Weems. There's not a ton of us, but yeah, I'll
I'm going
drop
to
her.
subscribe to your daughter after this because
Well,
artwork is amazing.
she's you know, everybody thinks their kid's the best. Well, most folks, right? And
Hmm.
so I try to regulate it, but damn, man, this kid has got some talent that is just, I don't know, man. I used to try to draw when I was a kid, but I mean, literally draw. That was it. But I'm trying to put her in a position where she doesn't get locked into working for somebody else, because it just grinds out all the talent sometimes.
Hmm.
And so we're just,
I'm I'm
we
looking
told
at
her,
some of
hey,
her
just move
artwork.
back
It's
home. I know
beautiful.
it's not cool, but you got to live with us until you can sort of, pull yourself, together where you don't have to
Hmm.
have 5 roommates or, you know, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just subscribed to your daughter's page. The artwork there is really beautiful.
Thank you. Well,
That's
on her
amazing.
behalf. Thank you.
Yeah,
And, you know,
if you
there are just some people that can just do lots of stuff. I mean, she's, you know, digital art, oil, just pretty much any medium. And then she can edit bit. She, okay. She asked me when she was about 11, 10 or 11. She used to do these videos all the time, you know, where she's just wrangling every kid in the in the neighborhood into like this movie she's making, and just makes, now you say this and you say that, and, you know, and they loved it. So one day she asked me if she could post a video on my YouTube page. Well, I never used it, right? I'm like, sure, honey. The last time I looked, it had almost 2 million views.
Holy shit.
It's a video. I had to I had to make it private because, you know, I got all these kids like subscribing to my YouTube, right? But it was, she made a video of, she had all these Bratz dolls. I don't know if it
I
was a
remember
thing
those.
back, right? And she was taking the makeup off of the dolls and then repainting them like, you know, how you wanted them.
Yeah.
And I had no idea there's this vibrant Barbie related community on YouTube. And so I get up to go to work one morning and I got this pop-up from YouTube saying, congratulations, your video got 100,000 views. And I'm like, what? So yeah, she's just that kind of
That's
kid,
amazing.
you know?
That's
And yeah,
amazing.
next thing we knew, a million views. She was literally still in elementary school.
That's so crazy. Good for her. Like that's
So
pretty
yeah,
amazing.
man, we're just trying to, I mean, that was when we decided we were just going to facilitate and just get out of her way and tell us what, you know, around that time she stopped asking for toys and started asking for like an art desk. And I need these pens and I need this. And we're like,
That sounds
okay,
like my daughter. I love
hopefully it'll
this.
pan out, you know?
I love this though because it sounds like my daughter
Yeah.
and the creativity she like expresses. Walter and I every Tuesday on our notes of the week we showcase a piece of artwork that
Oh,
either our
I've
kids
seen
have done,
those. I've seen
um,
those. Yeah.
and we're going to be having you on here I think in a couple weeks.
Right. I
Is
think we got something on the calendar, don't we?
Yeah, so if you have a piece of artwork that you'd really like to share from your daughter or from anyone else, send it to
Oh,
me and
I
I
could
will
do
make
that.
sure that it gets highlighted, and I'll add your daughter's link also to the post show notes for that one when we have you on,
Great.
because that show is going to be just the discussion on art and like creativity is going to be so much fun in that talk. And so before we ramble too long, is let's get back to these final questions.
Okay.
Into our more whimsical side and the Mulan aspect of make a man out of you. And I'll drop for anyone in the chat. There's a link right there. Hallie Claire is Marlon's daughter. She's on Substack. You can follow her profile. I just dropped it in the Substack chat for the nearly 1,400 people who are listening right now. Again, holy shit. Thank you for all being here. This is incredible because this is the type of feedback that helps show that this is the right thing to do, that this is needed. So thank you all for being here and being with us. So Marlon, my final 4 questions to you. These are the most fun and maybe the hardest of the questions too. Is first this is all from the chorus of I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan, is what does it mean to you to be as swift as a coursing river?
See, this one wasn't hard for me because I come from the world of trading. So this is about being decisive and you know, not momentum without recklessness.
I
And
like
that's, you know, it comes from like the, you know, I got an analogy for every damn thing. So I'll give you an example. I made it through my entire career without really ever having any trading errors, except one. And this was, I ran an electronic trading desk, algorithms, all kinds of stuff. So, when people bought stuff or sold stuff, when they gave me business, it was a pop up on a big old, flat screen computer, right? And on one occasion, I, I did something wrong, and I just ran the price of a stock through the roof. And the client, because everybody IM, or like, you remember AOL Messenger? That was kind of how trading desks communicated, and then Bloomberg came up with something that was similar, and we all started using that. And this guy's seeing that I'm fucking up, and he's like, he's not having it. And he's like, that's not my trade. What are you going to do about it? In the meantime, I'm realizing that I have a $250,000 loss staring me in the face. I've never had this before. And so when we talk about, I guess, like I said, what momentum, like without recklessness, decisive. I knew I did not have $250,000 to pay my firm for the loss. And long story short, I drew on some regulatory shit that I didn't even know was in my mental Rolodex about how to get out of situations like this. Started making phone calls, and I think I ended up losing, I don't know, 10 or 20 grand, but okay, fine. And so I always think about that. I could have panicked, and I did for a minute or a second, but I knew that was not going to fix the problem. And so I try to operate that way a lot, just in situations where people think shit is going south, and it could be, ooh, the car isn't turning on, or and I just try to be, hold it, let me just dissemble this situation and figure out what the next. So I guess that's sort of, and one of the guys, when I did what I was just describing, said, damn, you're a man of action. Because I was like, I got this, because everybody was panicking. It's a lot of money, and I fucking fixed it because I had to. But that's what I think about, I guess, as it relates to that question.
I think that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Next one. How do you embody the force of a great typhoon?
So, like I said, I was the nuclear option in raising my kids. So I guess that is, I can project um, impending doom without actually ever, it's like I said, it's like a nuclear missile that you never actually shoot. So usually that is like when that's what has replaced corporal punishment. Not so much fear, but being able to project that, that vibe of, okay, this is where it stops. And don't make me release the Kraken.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And by the way, there is no Kraken. They don't know that, right? There's no
Well, there
Kraken.
is in Seattle. There's a team there in Seattle. They
But you know
play
what I
on
mean,
ice.
dude? It's the fear of,
Yeah.
if we don't straighten up, something unknown might happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that looming danger. That the force of the great typhoon is a little bit looming, and a little bit can be really destructive if it's not held in check.
Yeah.
And so this also fits in with the next question, is how are you as strong as a raging fire? Not an out of control fire, but a raging fire.
I think it's my persistence. I think, just that sort of, sustained energy, I guess. And I look at it like, oh, just over the course of years, different things. I started an investment firm in Arkansas in the mid 90s, and no one had told my black ass that that's not some shit that I could do. Right? And so I lasted for 5 years, before I, just said, "Okay, Arkansas, I believe you now," and moved out of state. But there's a certain amount of stick to it, like where I just was not going to fail.
Yeah.
Right. And so I did a lot of things, first black owned investment firm, first this, that, first whatever. So when I finally closed the business, I felt like I'd proven my point. But
Mhm.
at a certain point, you also got to face reality that the system as it was at that time wasn't really ready for me. But yeah, I guess that may not be. My wife has told me on occasion, I think that, just not being willing to accept defeat is like my superpower, or one of them. I think I got more than one, but but
I think that's
that's
awesome.
just kind of my approach, and it's yeah, persistence.
Good. I like that. And finally, how are you as mysterious as the dark side of the moon?
Oh man. Okay, so I I live in North Carolina on an island, that's part of a town on the mainland that, I can almost go. When I first moved here, I could go all day and not see another black person. Um, if I don't leave my general area, I can for sure not see a black person. So, I showed up on the scene, I don't know, 10 years ago, and people were trying to figure out, hey, who the fuck is this guy? Where'd he come from? He doesn't look like he played any sport. He's too old. He's married to this white woman, and we don't really know what's the story, right? And I'm walking around, I'm a hoodie. Yeah, I don't own a suit anymore. I did my time, man. I've got like a dozen French cuff shirts that only ever get worn. That's kind of me going,
That's
dressing up
going
for
to the
something.
walls.
And I'm
Yeah.
still wearing jeans and maybe I got some like my church Nikes. Yeah.
Hey,
You
black
know,
jeans are fancy. Black jeans are
listen,
fancy.
man. And so, the mystery was, who the fuck is this guy?
Hmm.
And he's around, he seems nice, but we can't figure out what he does. And so it kind of culminated. Um, and this is a story. I write about all this stuff because it's funny to me. My wife took me to. She had started a job, managing this wine bar,
Hmm.
and really neat. We tried to buy it, and it just didn't. Timing didn't work out. And when she first started working there, the person who owned it at the time had a birthday party. And so we go to this party, and I'd never met the lady. And so we drive, and dude, it's like we turn off into like the woods. And I'm going, okay, this is not really where I feel like I should be going. And so where is this place?
I've seen this movie
Like,
before.
yeah, I literally have. It's called Get Out, right? And so I'm going, where are we going? Right? Literally a sign like a keep out, like a hillbilly looking. And then we go down, I don't know, a quarter of a mile, and they're really nice house, and it opens up, and okay, there's another black guy there. So I feel like, okay, I got a chance, right? If shit just goes haywire. so so you're introducing yourself to people, and I eventually the conversation is like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And this guy and his wife are talking to me, and he tells me whatever his background was, and I get ready to say, well, I do. And he says, don't worry about it. I Googled you. I, I never had anybody tell me to my face that they had Googled me. And I'm like, I don't even know who this person is. How would he know? And evidently the word had gotten around about Shannon's mysterious black husband. You don't know what this guy does. Is he living off of her? Whatever. And so then as it came out that, I had worked on Wall Street, I had 2 or 3 white dudes come up to me talking about how they had checked me out. Because now the actual story is, I guess, to them more disturbing than not knowing what I did. It's like, what do you mean? He's black. He worked on Wall Street? What are you talking about? And, let's check him out and see if he's making this up, seriously. So I guess that's the mystery part, man.
That's
I enjoy walking around having sort of a skill set that is unusual for someone who looks like me. It's kind of fun.
It's looking at it from this side, as an outside looking in on this, is it feels so wrong that you have to keep explaining yourself, or like that
It
people
is
have to
wrong,
keep
man.
Googling you. It is wrong. And I'm at the same time that you're saying it, is you are is like is you have to sorry, I want to, at the same time you're saying this, you're bringing such a different approach to how you relive it than I was expecting. And you bring a
Oh
lot of
man,
joy,
look,
you bring a
this
lot of
shit is
humor
so.
to it.
If if I got pissed off every time shit happened like that, I would just be running my own blood pressure up. These people are oblivious to the fact that they're offending me. In
Yeah.
fact, sometimes it's almost like my dad. It delivered like it's a compliment. Oh, I've checked you out. You really did work in New York. And it's like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Right. And it's not like I've never Googled somebody before, but the idea of approaching a person like you're telling them you verified them,
Mm-hmm.
you've authenticated their story. That's something that is just bonkers. And it's one of those things that's so weird. It took, I didn't even get offended because I was just like, oh, this is really creepy, you
Yeah,
know,
like I've Googled people, but I don't go up to their
but you
face
don't
and go,
tell
"Hey,
them, right?
I've
I
verified who
Google
you
everybody,
are."
man. Nick,
Yeah,
I
like
Googled you. Okay, there, it's out there.
yeah, like
No, I mean,
okay, there's probably some shit on there that I would
no,
be
man,
funny if you
honestly,
saw.
I haven't, but now I think I'm gonna.
I don't know if there's still some like photos from like from college
Oh
on there.
man,
We did some weird shit in college. Like
I
we stole
don't
a
want to
tree from
know.
we cut down and stole a tree from a park in Pittsburgh, for Christmas.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
I was in a fraternity. We were like,
that sounds very much
it
like
was
a
pretty
fraternity.
fraternity things. Um, but like, and hey, everyone too who's in the audience, as you catch us here right at the end, is if you've been here the whole time, thank you for being a part of this incredible discussion, because like to me the humor part of what you have just talked about is like embracing it and being able to then, yes, I stole a tree.
I'm
um
sorry, Nick. I just took a peep over and somebody said, Marlon, you got some messed up stories, dude. Why are you laughing about it? Well, you got a choice. Really, you have two choices.
yeah.
And and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like when some of these kinds of things happen, maybe I chew on it for a day or two, but you can't just let shit mess up your life because then what, right? Um, the writing about some of it is therapeutic for me. In
Yeah.
fact, just writing any of I write about the stock market and what the unemployment stuff, that's just for me like almost autopilot. But the real stories that I write about, it's therapy for me to just sort of relive it and rethink it and just share it. And people will tell you, if, yeah, dude, that story, yeah, you know what, you shouldn't have had, you're just overestimating how bad it was. But I, I don't even write about them from a point of, ooh, how bad this was and I was such a victim. I just think it's helpful for people, especially now, for people to sort of revisit some of the shit that Black folks have been telling everybody. And people would say, oh, you know, quit playing the race card, or, they would really try to diminish a lot of these things. And it's one of the best things about writing that I
Oh yeah.
have gotten out of it, is just these different little stories that, it's family tradition. We all
Mhm.
amongst ourselves talk about it. Everybody has that, sort of family, I call it family mythology, the stories that get shared, and, Uncle so and so did X, and,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And I write about it because I don't know, I think it's interesting stuff. And, you know, it
I think
gets
that's
all.
wonderful. I think the writing process is so helpful in self-reflection and self-evaluation and growth. And that's been one of my favorite parts about getting on Substack, is being able to write things or write poetry or talk to people and have these long form discussions, because they open up so much about ourselves and about others, and we go unexpected places and we get to see the beauty that is people and celebrate joy and learn. And like my mug says, now you know so you can grow. And for men right now, that's really important, is we need to start growing and we need to intentionally do it. And Marlon, you've been such a wonderful example of this throughout today, and showing and talking about your experiences and exploring your faults and your successes and being open and so honest. And just, yeah, as someone says in the chat, truth to power is cathartic, is letting us remember that there's important things that bring joy into our lives and that fulfill us, and that we need to intentionally celebrate those. And one of the ways that I obviously intentionally celebrate people is I want to promote them and I want to get their work out there, and I want to make sure that they get, with whatever influence I have, is I get out of the way and promote the people who are really doing a lot of the hard work themselves, the writing, the creativity, the aspects that I can't fill in, but I can help promote. And Marlon, I want you to be able to promote the work that you're doing. Tell people where they can find you. Unabashedly promote yourself and the things that you're doing. You've sold yourself really well, I think, to the audience today, just as a person. You've taught me a lot. And you've given me some things to think about on my own too, around where I still hold biases of my own, and where I need to challenge myself, and where I can grow as a father, so I don't have to worry about making the, okay, now I need round two of kids so we can undo some of the
Yeah,
mistakes that we
trust
did.
me, it's a very there was probably a much easier way I could have found out about myself than having two sets of kids. But we do what we do.
So promote yourself. How can people support your work, what you're doing? And we will be seeing Marlon again soon here on Sick of the Shit publications. So Marlon, promote yourself, my friend.
Um, I'm easy to find. If you're on Substack, I'm right there. I have the Journeyman newsletter, which, by the way, is there's really no paywalls. Everything I write and publish is free. Um, I ask people who can to support it by becoming a paid subscriber. Um, my logic is that if you think about it, misinformation is always free. I gave a lecture on that subject of misinformation a year or so back. And, you point out, just you look at all the places you can get, the Gateway Pundit and,
Mhm.
even Breitbart, and all these places are free. And that's kind of what we're up against. I mean, if you ever, um, if you spend any time online, you can just see the cognitive dissonance of people who think they know things that are absolutely false. And so I try to, do my part in fighting that. And as I said, I've been on this road for about 6 years now on Substack. But I guess interestingly, for people who do not, for whatever reason, prefer Substack, I'm now simulcasting on YouTube and Facebook. So, and I do a show, in fact, later today at 6. Arturo Dominguez and I have
I
started
see you guys on quite often.
yeah, a weekly sort of wrap up that we do, and because we're a couple of creative guys, we call it a show with no name because we couldn't
You know
think of
what?
it.
I
So
love it.
that's the
I
name,
love it.
a show with no name, and
I love it.
so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's kind of what I'm up to, and hopefully, trying to build a little something here. So um, if you like what you've heard, please subscribe and follow and all those good things.
I highly recommend it for everyone. And as I've said a couple times now, Marlon, is thank you so much. Like,
Hey man,
thank
thanks
you
for
for,
having me because this is
yeah.
unlike. I don't think I've had a conversation on here like this one, so it's kind
Well,
of good to change things up. And this was definitely a different conversation to have. A great
thanks. Well,
conversation. I
thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
I'm glad. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I appreciate that compliment. And to all of our viewers here on Substack, on YouTube, on Twitch, to nearly the over 1,400 people on Substack, smash that heart before we go. Smash the heart and hit the subscribe in the top corner. Subscribe to both Marlon, myself, Banner, and Backbone, where we're simulcasting on, and become part of this journey. Become part of the group. Yeah, make sure to Google him first and then tell him that you Googled him, and then
Yeah.
that you believe him. Is you are all amazing. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this discussion, because I think it's incredibly important that we men fix ourselves and find models where we can learn off of how we can improve. And having all of the women in the discussion and anyone who's not male in the discussion in our chats, thank you for being a part of it and feeling like you are welcome here, because you are, because this space is for you too. This is a better humaning, but focused on us men who just need a little bit of help right now. We need that extra focus for ourselves and not anybody else to do it, because we're not passing the accountability onto others. We're going to live with the consequences of our actions and values, and that's what we're doing here. So thank you, Marlon. Thank you, everyone in the audience. And as I always say, we're done being sick of this shit, and we're doing this shit. Thanks, y'all, and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. And I'll see y'all again next week for another intelligent masculinity discussion. Thanks, everyone.